Man, yesterday was a wild ride. So morning started out normal. I usually spend the first part of the day, usually up until about 10 o'clock, really kind of looking at economic news and just catching up on everything. And then usually start having meetings around 10 o'clock. So first meeting's at 10 o'clock with a trial attorney that we've hired for a lawsuit. We had some fraud from a seller, so we're working with our partner to file the lawsuit against that particular seller. But we ran into some issues. So everything was going well. We're negotiating a settlement with the sellers, and then our attorney took a job at a different law firm. So he left, the law firm assigned our case to a new attorney. So we had a call a few weeks ago trying to catch the attorney up and figure out where they were, and it was a really bad call. So we kind of chopped that up to it just being this person being new. It kind of just got thrown at them. They still needed to catch up. But we had another disaster call yesterday. So it was really clear to us that this person didn't have expertise in trying cases related to business. They had a background as a criminal prosecutor, and this really wasn't their area of expertise. So it got to one point we were talking about some very simple aspects, the multiple that you pay for a business, and she didn't seem to understand it. And as the meeting started to go sideways, she called in, the head of her firm, and I asked the head of the law firm, and I just said, in cases like this in the past, how have you handled this? And they gave the answer, a long answer that said they've never done a case like this. The only person that had experience was the attorney we had and has left. So now, mid-lawsuit, we're gonna have to go and get a new attorney. So right off the bat, the day's not starting great. But next meeting did take a little more positive tone. So we had a meeting with one of our partners. We bought a restaurant down in Florida. It's doing very well. He's done all kinds of things. He put up a website that did not have a website before. They started online ordering. He's gotten the food costs really under control. He's raised prices. They were really undercharging. So we've raised prices, we've cut food costs, we've streamlined the processes. Things are going great. So he wants to raise the distribution. So ultimately with us in our partner program, it is going to be their choice, but we typically do give input on whether we should raise a distribution or not. Now, business is going well, but this is also the busy season for them. So they have some seasonality. Kind of philosophically, I don't think you should raise your distribution during your busy seasons when cash is coming in like crazy. When you have a business that you also have times of year where you might have a net negative cash flow months. So I'd rather make the decision to raise the dividend at the tail end of the slow period after we've gotten through those potentially net negative cash flow months than raise it when things are going great. But we did have plenty of room. We were only paying out about 15% of what we could have. So we did implement a 50% increase in the distributions, which is great. We love that. And we decided to revisit the subject at the tail end of the slow season to make sure that we've gotten through and we have plenty of cash in the bank. So we hang up that call, hop on another call. We've actually got another restaurant. Just a coincidence, these actually two individuals know each other, the person that we just talked to that owned the restaurant and the person that we're helping buy another restaurant. And so we just finalized some deals there. The purchase agreement, there's been a lot of back and forth. So we had a call just to knock down some of the final issues with the purchase agreement. There was some debate about liabilities, and essentially they only wanted to keep liability for things that happened when they owned it for 2 years. And that's not gonna fly. My view is seller is responsible for things that happened when they own the business. You always hate it. It's kind of a red flag when it becomes a point of contention, but it was. Luckily, we came to an agreement. They're going to accept that liability. Looks like we're going to get another business under contract. Then boom, hop on another call, had to talk to an attorney that one of our partners wanted to use for their deal that we just got under contract. It's someone, typically we have about half a dozen attorneys that we work with over and over. They wanted to work with, it was essentially their cousin who has some M&A background. So we just had a call with him. We typically prefer to work with attorneys that have SBA deal experience. He has M&A experience, but not SBA. But after talking with him, it seemed like we could supplement where he doesn't have the SBA knowledge so that that's gonna work, which is really happy because it can make our partner feel very comfortable having someone that they've known for a long time and trust on their side. And that's what we wanna see. Then the day goes back to bad news. So a deal we've been working on for a long time. We're working on this one for 6 months because we had to essentially put it on hold because the bank wanted to see tax returns for 2024. So it got put on hold while the seller prepared their tax returns. We should have gotten a commitment letter 2 weeks ago that the bank said they weren't gonna do the loan. They said they didn't like the franchise. They said the franchise had too high of a default rate. And certain aspects I agree. From what observation of this franchise, it was a restoration company, just for background, and that this franchise had brought in a lot of franchisees that really shouldn't have been in the restoration business. You want to work with people that have construction backgrounds, really not just, someone that watched a video maybe like this one, and then just decided to buy any old business. So there's a lot of skills required to operate in that industry, and they were letting in people into their franchise system that didn't have the skills necessary to succeed in that business. And then they were also splitting up the territories into two small pieces. So I kind of agree somewhat on their view of the franchise and why the default rates are going to be higher for that franchise than others because of those reasons. But for our deal, we looked at it, we get an entire city. It's a top 10 MSA. So we have a really great market. We have a really great buyer with a construction background. We've seen from other cities where they had the whole city and they had a good construction background owner. We talked to one owner that we actually knew pretty well, that they were doing over $2.5 million of EBITDA. The one we're buying is only doing about $300,000. So if we start adopting what the person that we know that's doing $2.5 million within the franchise, if we bring what he's doing over to this other one, we think it could do really well. So now we got to scramble to find another bank to get this deal done. And that's just a small fraction of what went on yesterday. I actually looked at my phone. I was on 34 different calls in between the hours of 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. It was a wild day, ups and downs. We barely even scratched the surface of what went on. But that's a little insight into what our days look like trying to get deals done all across the country.